Between 10 and 11 billion just on oil transactions.
He's got enough to make him one of the wealthiest men in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, this is an organized crime activity, and it's been going on for a long time. You got basically one family.
Whatever else he is, Saddam Hussein is one of the richest men in the world. His country may be in shambles, and he may be hanging on to power by his fingertips, but his fingerprints are on a fortune in dollars, Swiss francs, British pounds, German marks, Japanese yen, not to mention Iraqi dinars. It's difficult to tell how much of it is Saddam's personal fortune and how much of it belongs to the Iraqi people. But to foreign governments and private citizens seeking war reparations, it doesn't make any difference. Jules Kroll is one of the foremost private investigators in the world and the man that the Kuwaiti government has hired to find Saddam's money. His New York-based company employs hundreds of operatives worldwide and specializes in corporate takeovers, industrial espionage, and tracking down the illicit fortunes of people like Ferdinand Marcos and Haiti's Baby Doc Duvalier. How does Saddam Hussein and his financial empire compare?
He's clearly on the all-star team. He has put together a network through some very clever colleagues that is as extensive and as far-reaching and as pernicious as we've seen in any of these. Most of the others were much more simply done. This is very complex. It's very secret.
Kroll's information comes from Iraqi expatriates, international intelligence contacts, corporate records, and a private database believed to be one of the most extensive in the world. He believes that the source of Saddam's personal fortune is that Saddam and his family, over the last 10 years, have taken 5% of Iraq's oil sales for themselves. 5% of $200 billion. You're talking about $10 billion.
Between 10 and 11 billion just on oil transactions.
He's got enough to make him one of the wealthiest men in the world.
Absolutely.
When it comes time for reparations, Saddam Hussein and Iraq, I know, are going to plead poverty. They're going to say we have no money. What little we have, we're going to need to rebuild our own country. Is that true?
They may, on an official basis, be broke. But they've set up this network outside the country that has vast assets. Those really are the assets of the Iraqi people. But they are not listed as the assets of the Iraqi people.
They've essentially been stolen, you're saying?
They've been skimmed. I mean, this is an organized crime activity, and it's been going on for a long time. You got basically one family. I mean, this is their equivalent of the Gambino family.
In fact, it is a family affair. The inner circle of Saddam's political and financial empire is made up of his immediate family, as well as close associates from Saddam's hometown.
We have uncovered Iraqi front companies stretching from Italy to France to Germany to the Channel Islands to the UK, and then we jump to the United States, several parts of the United States.
In some cases, the companies are wholly owned by the Iraqis, in other cases, partly Iraqi-owned. Some of the investments are public and some are secret. And Jules Kroll says that one of the secrets is that when some Japanese companies do business with Iraq, 2.5% goes into a Japanese bank account for Saddam. The headquarters for Saddam's financial empire is here in Geneva, Switzerland. In many ways, it's the perfect location. A financial center, Geneva is renowned for its banking secrecy. It also happens to be the European headquarters for the United Nations, which comes in handy because the man who runs Saddam's financial empire also doubles as his ambassador to the United Nations here. He is Saddam's half-brother. The name, Barzan Takriti. Barzan is the former head of Saddam's feared security police. We came here to try and interview him and to track down some of the companies that Jules Kroll says are fronts for Saddam's money. One of the trails led us to this Geneva office building into the headquarters of Midco Finance, which describes itself as a holding company involved in merchandising and investments. But this is also the address for something called Montana Management, which sounds like some obscure American real estate company. In fact, it is neither. It's not American. It's registered in Panama. The directors and officers are Iraqi, and the holdings are anything but obscure. Montana's holdings include 8.4%, or $67 million worth of stock in one of the largest media companies in the world, the French conglomerate Hachette, with publishing companies, television stations, and magazines in the United States like Elle, Woman's Day, Car and Driver, and Road and Track. But we suspect that the people there will be as surprised as we were to find out that Saddam Hussein has anything to do with them. But according to Jules Kroll, the officers and directors of Montana management are frontmen for Saddam Hussein. You're saying Saddam Hussein owns 8% of Road and Track?
8.4. Annual revenues for Hachette are between 4 and 5 billion U.S. They're a massive, massive communications empire.
Hello. We decided to see if anyone was home at Montana's address.
If we wanted to find Montana management, they have this address.
Yes, that's all.
But where are they?
They are not here.
They're not here.
It's only the address.
How do we get a hold of them?
It's not, it's only domiciliation.
How would we find them?
You have to go to Baghdad, I don't know.
To Baghdad?
Yes.
Really, to Baghdad?
Yes, I don't know.
Why Baghdad?
If they are Iraqi. Usually Iraqi live in Iraq.
Boris Bueller is a Swiss lawyer and a member of the board of Midco Finance, which not only shares an address with Montana management, but also shares some of the same officers and directors.
I don't know where they are.
And what about the Iraqi $67 million investment in Hachette?
They said it's not your business. You tell nobody.
But you believe that maybe they do own 8% of Hachette?
What I believe, I don't know. I believe in God.
Jules Kroll's investigation turned up another scheme he says has been used to hide Saddam's billions. In early August, when Iraqi troops were moving into Kuwait, Iraq's money was also on the move. A flurry of telexes went out from Baghdad with instructions to move money from Iraq's accounts into the accounts of the Central Bank of Jordan and into other Jordanian banks. On 2 occasions, those transfers were stopped, but Kroll says some of the money got through.
We're going to find out that monies were moved from Iraq to Jordan
And
for
the Jordan,
safekeeping.
you're saying you think that a chunk of Saddam Hussein's millions is sitting safely in the Central Bank of Jordan?
Well, in Central Bank of Jordan accounts in different parts of the world. Maybe outside of Jordan, maybe in Jordan, but their banking systems are very close.
You're saying essentially that Jordan was instrumental in sheltering some of Saddam Hussein's money?
It is the house of convenience. The house of Hussein is the house of convenience for Saddam.
And Kroll says that Jordan wasn't just helping Iraq hide money, it was also helping Iraq transport stolen cars.
There have been observations and sightings, for example, in Switzerland, of automobiles that were limos and BMWs that were stolen from Kuwait that ended up in places like Geneva.
Kroll says the stolen cars were shipped to Europe aboard a diplomatic cargo flight of Royal Jordanian Airlines, and that they later turned up at Iraq's embassy in Geneva. In fact, thousands of cars were stolen after Iraq invaded Kuwait.
We believe they've stolen in automobiles alone over $300 million in automobiles that belong to Kuwaitis and Kuwaiti companies.
This red Ferrari turned up in Rome, stolen by an Iraqi colonel apparently looking for the fastest way possible out of Kuwait. And according to the Kuwaiti government, these Mercedes limousines in Baghdad, used last month to chauffeur visiting Soviet envoy Yevgeny Primakov, were also stolen from Kuwait. And then there's Saddam's industrial network. 4 years ago, under the direction of Saddam's son-in-law, Hussein Kamal, Iraq's Minister of Industry and the Minister of Oil, Iraq began buying up scores of Western companies that would help Saddam develop his own arms industry.
These companies were all in the business of purchasing dual-use equipment. Steel that could conceivably be used for an industrial purpose, but in fact was used to build cannons.
These big companies?
Some of them are pretty good sized. For example, you take this company, Schmiede Mechanica, which is a Swiss company. This company is a $50 to $100 million company on an annual basis. It is 18% owned through fronts by the Iraqi government.
And if you look into these investments, the one name that keeps turning up again and again is Anis Wadi.
Mr. Wadi is your classic middleman. He is a broker.
We found Mr. Wadi in Beverly Hills, in his $3.5 million home. How much business did you do with the Iraqi government over the last 4 years?
Between 20 to 30 million sterling, which is, it comes to 50, 60 million dollars.
That's a lot of business.
Yeah.
Wadi insists that he's just a businessman and that everything he did was perfectly legal. He claims that he was approached by Iraqi government officials with an offer he couldn't refuse. You did $60 million worth of business with Iraq.
Yeah.
And you said you had no connections with the Iraqi government at all?
Well, I explained to you how it started, and we were just lucky people.
And you had no connections with Saddam Hussein or with his government?
He doesn't know me, I doesn't know him.
You were just in the right place at the right time.
Exactly.
I think Mr. Wadi is being somewhat disingenuous, or to put it more bluntly, he's lying. Because you can't be involved in all these companies, all of which are Iraqi-controlled, just by coincidence. He is in it up to his neck.
The U.S. government apparently agrees with Jules Kroll, because on Friday morning, federal agents seized Anis Wadi's home and businesses in Beverly Hills, claiming they're part of Iraq's assets in the United States. Over and above that, the Treasury Department says it's already seized or is preparing to seize more than $1 billion in Iraqi cash and property in this country. We knew from the outset that Saddam Hussein probably wouldn't take our calls. So in Geneva, we went looking for Saddam's brother, Ambassador Barzan, the man Jules Kroll says runs the financial network. Barzan, one of the most powerful men in Saddam's regime, had never given an interview before, and he refused to give us an appointment. So we went looking for him at his favorite night spot. Then we tried to talk to him at his home. Then we went to the Iraqi embassy to see if we could get him to comment on Kroll's charges. At first, security turned us away, but then Barzan agreed to talk. We asked him about the charge that he controls Saddam's secret financial empire.
I'm ready to give you an authorization to check with banks anywhere. If there are any funds in my name, under my control, then you may invest them as you wish, and we want 1% back of what you find.
I'm prepared to accept that deal right now.
Does the Iraqi government or does Saddam's family have any interest in Montana management?
What I can say categorically is that the family has nothing to do with it.
The Kuwaitis say that Iraq stole literally tens of millions of dollars worth of cars out of Kuwait, and that some of them have ended up here in Geneva in the hands of the diplomatic staff of your embassy.
I have no idea what you're talking about, what was taken from Kuwait, but things of that nature happened. Concerning your other point, if I don't answer you now, you will put a question mark there. So I'll answer you. Yes, we received 2 cars from Baghdad a few months ago. The first car was sent from the Foreign Ministry for the use of the mission. The second is my personal car. I have the papers for it. I personally would feel disgusted using or taking anything that belonged to somebody else. That's the way I was brought up and the way I feel.
Jules Kroll, who visited Kuwait last week with a group of American businessmen to assess the damage, is the point man for a worldwide effort to recover Saddam and Iraq's money. Not only money needed to rebuild Kuwait, but money to compensate anyone who suffered losses at the hands of Iraq. And we were surprised to hear that an Arab, the man who hired Jules Kroll, Kuwait's ambassador to the United States, and the one thing he's most sure of is that Saddam's hidden billions should not be safe.
I think they have to account for the theft of these funds that they have taken from their people. And thereby, they have to account for it to their people and to us. This is illegally taken, it's thievery, and they have no entitlement to it.
You want it back?
Of course we do.
Taking kickbacks, taking commissions is a criminal violation. Under Iraqi law, they cut off people's hands and hang people for doing that in their own country, except when it comes to themselves.
It should be pointed out that the Jordanian government vehemently denies sheltering any of Saddam Hussein's money. Jordan does acknowledge that a Mercedes and a BMW were transported for the Iraqis aboard Royal Jordanian Airlines, but they say the cars were neither Kuwaiti in origin nor stolen. And Hachette, the French media conglomerate, tells us that it's aware that Montana management owns some of its stock, but it didn't know that Saddam Hussein is a major shareholder. At any rate, Hachette says Montana has had no influence on its corporate or media practices.